In this video, we're going to have a look at speaking and listening activities for teaching remotely with Skillful 2nd edition. The first idea here you might like to try is to dictate the unit aims from the unit opener to your students. They would listen and then type back those aims in the online platform chat box to confirm their understanding. You can then refer back to those aims once you've finished the unit. Dictation activities are also great when teaching online. So for example, here you can see the vocabulary preview activities. So you could dictate the words or definitions, and the students must listen and then type in the online chat box the correct matching number or letter. Likewise, there's a great activity called beep dictation, which is great when you have gap fill type activities. You could dictate the sentences one by one. When there is a gap, you can use a beep sound. For example, I think my beep is more like my mother's than my father's, like the one you can see here in Activity 2. The students then type a word that fits the sentence correctly in the online chat box. Moving on now to the listening texts. Many of the listening texts will have true or false or multiple choice question type activities. So students could write their answers in the chat box when you ask them to. You can then check the answers as a whole group or replay the audio to highlight the answer if any students had any difficulty. Also, for these global listening type activities, you could play a "What did you hear?" activity. This is where you give the students a list of questions or question words such as what, who, where, why, when. For example, who is speaking, where are they, why are they talking, what are they talking about. This will help set a context for the listening before they listen in more detail. For the close listening, you can do some more detailed listening activities. For example, here you can see students have to fill in a table, or you could ask them to draw a graphic organizer or mind map to help them organize their notes as they listen. They could then share those notes with a partner online and talk about what they remember from the listening before sharing as a whole class. You could also use an activity called Your Questions. This is when students need to listen and write down 1 to 3 questions each about the listening. They then share the questions with the teacher or as a whole group in the chat box. They then must listen again to try and answer their friends' questions. Another activity you could try is What Happened Next? So play the start of the listening, then pause the audio at an appropriate point. Students then predict what will be said next. We also have the pronunciation for listening and speaking sections. So these sections could be played online with students. They must listen, identify and underline which words or sounds are stressed, for example. They could underline those stressed words in their books at home and then write in the chat box the answers as you check as a whole class. In terms of speaking activities, we have lots of discussion questions in each unit, at the start of each unit and in the critical thinking sections. Let's have a look at how we can approach these while teaching remotely. Firstly, you could ask your students to prepare their answers to the discussion questions at home. They could take it in turns to share their ideas then during the online class. If you do this, then think about creating some active listening activities while students listen to their classmates. For example, ask them to take notes whilst others are speaking, and ask them questions after a student has finished sharing their ideas. They could summarize what everyone has said in short summary paragraph, or they could record themselves summarizing the class's ideas. Students could also record themselves talking about these discussion questions. They could then post their recordings on shared class platform, where you could set a task of listening to 3 other students' recordings and giving them a comment about their ideas. In terms of choosing which students will speak and give opinions in an online class, you could draw out students' names at random and they have to then speak for a certain amount of time. They could then nominate the next student. If possible, put students in breakout groups first so they can share ideas and practice first. When it comes to the speaking tasks and the speaking models, think about recording yourself doing a model speaking task. This will help you set an expectation for the task. You will find a speaking task answer model in the student's book you could use. If you can, put students in groups to do the brainstorm and planning sections. They could then record themselves speaking and post on a class online platform. Nominate different students to comment and take notes on another student's recording. They could then write some reflections under the video they watched to encourage online communication.